My fiancée planned to wear a wedding dress to my brother's wedding out of spite. Here's why I ended our engagement and said goodbye for good. I am livid with my fiancée. I can't believe someone could possibly be so shallow and self-centered. We've been engaged for 6 months, but at this point, I'm fully considering calling off the wedding. Everything was going great until we went to lunch with my brother and his fiancée last week. Their names are Jacob and Shayla, and they're perfect for each other. They're both very laid back, and it doesn't take much to please them. I think that's why my brother loves Shayla so much. She makes life easy for him. My fiancée, Alice, is much more high maintenance. A little backstory, my family and friends really loved Alice when we first started dating. We met back in law school, and I thought she was absolutely brilliant. She's smart, successful, and not to mention absolutely stunning, all reasons why I have always loved her. But after a while, I started to notice that she might be falling out of favor with my family. No one ever really said anything to me because they knew I would defend her, but I began to notice the eye rolls and forced smiles when she was around. So, last week, the 4 of us all met up for lunch at Jacob and I's favorite burger spot. Alice hates it there and says it's a total dump. I was only able to convince her to go because she knew there would be lots of wedding talk, since Jacob and Shayla are getting married next month. If there's one thing Alice loves, it's weddings. Since the day I proposed, all I hear day in and day out are her plans for every last detail of her perfect day. Except Alice's idea of the perfect wedding and Shayla's idea of the perfect wedding couldn't be more different. While at lunch, Alice bombarded the 2 of them with questions about what venue they are using, which florist they hired, where they are registered, and was appalled to realize that Jacob and Shayla are keeping everything extremely low-key. They're planning on having a small ceremony in Shayla's parents' backyard, and only because both of our families insisted they have a ceremony. Otherwise, they probably would have just went down to the courthouse and called it a day. Alice was able to fake a smile and hide her disgust for a while until they started talking about dresses. Alice, who the designer is for your dress? Ross, Shayla said, laughing. Turns out Shayla really did pick out a $20 dress to wear on her big day because, honestly, she doesn't really care about fancy things. She's just happy to be marrying her best friend. But Alice was absolutely shocked. She practically yelled at Shayla, saying that she can't do that because this is supposed to be the most important day of her life. She even went so far as to say that she couldn't believe Shayla is okay with looking cheap on her wedding day. That's when Jacob had had enough. You know, some of us actually get married just because we're in love, not because we want to show off for our guests, he said. This shot Alice up, but I could tell she was still fuming on the inside. I was somehow able to get us through the rest of the lunch by cracking a few jokes and ordering another round of beers. But the tension was definitely still there. They didn't speak about the dress again, though. Honestly, after the drive home, I hadn't even thought about that conversation again until today. But it turns out Alice hasn't stopped thinking about it. This afternoon, I finished up some yard work, then went upstairs to take a shower. When I walked into our bedroom, Alice was standing in front of a full-length mirror wearing a wedding gown. When our eyes met in the reflection, I immediately covered my eyes. I apologized because we were getting married in a few months, and I knew that she wanted to keep her dress secret from me until the big day. She laughed and turned around, saying it was okay. I uncovered my eyes, surprised at her reaction because I expected her to be upset. Then what she said next confused me even more. This wasn't her wedding dress. She smirked, and she told me that this was the dress she would be wearing to Jacob and Shayla's wedding. Now, I don't know much about dresses, but I could tell that this dress seemed way too fancy to be something you usually wear as a guest. It was white, floor-length, and covered in intricately beaded detail. She isn't even one of Shayla's bridesmaids. Looking pleased with herself, she told me that she had seen this dress when she was shopping for her own wedding dress a few weeks ago. She had thought it was pretty, but had passed it up because it was on the clearance rack. Then she said, "Can you imagine Shayla getting shown up on her own wedding day by a guest wearing a dress that was on sale?" That's when it clicked for me. I swear to God, you can't make this stuff up. Alice is planning on wearing a wedding dress to teach Shayla a lesson, or maybe teach Jacob a lesson. I've tried and tried to make it make sense, but I just can't. But from what I've gathered, Alice was deeply offended when Jacob stood up to her last week. In her mind, she thinks that wearing a fancy designer gown will put all of the attention on Alice instead of on Shayla. Then she will realize she should have bought a nicer dress, and Jacob will regret calling Alice shallow. I know, WTF. I absolutely lost it. I told her she was out of her goddamn mind, and that if she really planned on wearing that to their wedding, then it would be the last time she wore a wedding dress. I was upset and don't know if I really meant that, but I honestly couldn't stay in the room with her for another minute. I was so pissed that I went straight to my truck and just started driving. And now here I am, sitting in a random parking lot, mad as hell and confused about what to do. Who even does that? Not only am I mad that she would even think to do something like this, but honestly, I'm rethinking our entire relationship. I've always known that Alice was pretty bougie, but I was always able to see past that. I just thought she was someone who valued high-quality things and took good care of herself, which I admired. But now I think she really might just be so vain that she would do something as crazy as this. If she's pulling something like this over a small criticism, what else might she be capable of when she gets upset during our marriage? I know I have to go back and confront her, but I'm not looking forward to it. At this point, I don't know if I could ever look past this whole ordeal and trust her to, not do something insane like this in the future. The way I see it, the only two options I have are to try and convince her not to wear the dress, and then we can hopefully move past this, or I go back and tell her that I'm done. No more engagement, no more wedding, nothing. Am I overreacting for feeling like I need to call off our engagement over something like this? Well, it's been 3 days since I walked in on Alice wearing the wedding dress. I sat in my truck for about 2 hours trying to figure out what to do. Honestly, when I started to head back, I still didn't know what my decision would be, but I figured we would talk and figure it out together when I got home. When I walked in the house, she was sitting at the kitchen table eating a takeout salad from her favorite vegan restaurant. She was on the phone with one of her friends, talking away about the most recent episode of The Bachelorette. I noticed she hadn't ordered enough food for me, and I also noticed that she didn't look upset at all. While I had been sitting in that parking lot, racking my brain and feeling the entire spectrum of emotions, she had been here, acting like this was just another night. That's when any doubt I had about ending our engagement vanished. "I don't want to marry you anymore," I said. I didn't say it angrily, but just as a matter of fact. It was finally clear to me that she genuinely isn't the girl for me. Of course, it hurts to admit that, but honestly, I'm glad I realized it now and not after we tie the knot. Honestly, she didn't take it well. She hung up on her friend and slammed her fists on the table, threw her salad all over the room, and screamed at me that I was overreacting and making the biggest mistake of my life. She said that I would never find a girl like her again. I quickly realized that she wasn't upset by the fact that she was losing me, but simply angry at the fact that I didn't want her anymore. It was like watching a toddler throw a tantrum, and I knew without a doubt that I had made the right decision by leaving her. I packed the majority of my stuff that night and left. I've been crashing on the couch over at Jacob and Shayla's apartment since then. Of course, they asked what happened between Alice and I, and we had a good long laugh after I told them the whole story. I knew they never liked her anyway, so maybe this whole fiasco was just a wake-up call I needed to get away from Alice. It kills me to think about how much time I wasted in a relationship with her. I'm sad to be single again, but overall, I feel like I definitely dodged a bullet. I know I'll probably lose a lot of money on deposits from everything we'll have to cancel for the wedding, but it's worth it. All I can say is, I hope Alice learned a lesson from this, and that her stupid clearance dress is non-refundable. I'd say she deserves that bad karma. Just when I thought I was done with all the Alice drama, she pops back into my life again, or at least back into my mailbox. It's been a month since I packed my things and left her, and it's also Jacob and Shayla's wedding day. I'm still staying at their place for the time being. Shayla stayed the night at her parents' house and will be heading over there this afternoon for the ceremony. But when Jacob went out to check the mail this morning, he came back in and dropped a letter addressed to me on the counter. It was from Alice. I opened it to realize that it was an invoice. She actually sent me a bill for the dress, $3,000 for that stupid thing. Didn't she say it had been on clearance? Who actually spends that much on a stupid dress? I stared at it in disbelief for a solid 5 minutes. She can't be serious, right? But then I remembered who I'm dealing with and realized that she's dead serious. Luckily, we're both lawyers, and I know that she had absolutely no legal standing here. She just had to get one last jab in at me and let me know that she blames me for everything. I laughed, crumpled up the letter and tossed it in the trash. Just one more piece of proof that I absolutely dodged a bullet. NTA. You absolutely dodged a bullet here. She definitely showed her true colors. I'm sorry you went through this, but you're definitely better off. NTA, man, she must be really pretty, otherwise I don't know how you've put up with her until now. Listen, man, consider yourself lucky that you finally realized you had to get away from that crazy chick, and don't let yourself fall for someone like that again in the future. I, 26 female, have been friends with 27 female, who are called Bree, for 13 years. Bree and I were never close, but we ran in the same group. One thing about her is that she's competitive, and not in a fun way. One time, she accidentally dropped my entire block of Clue sheets from Clue into the toilet after she lost. So now let's go to last weekend. At a Halloween party, my turnout was about 34 people. We had 3 events planned, and each event came with a prize, a costume contest, bobbing for apples, and trivia. I saw her Google answers. I had asked more than once for everyone to put phones away because it ruins all the fun. I called her out directly, and she put the phone away. She complained the rest of the night that the party guest who won must have been given the answers. For apples, she had her husband do it because she didn't want to ruin her makeup, but got mad she couldn't help by using her hands on the sidelines, even though she wouldn't let anyone else do that. For the costume, the way we did it was, we put our sheets of paper at a table, and when people had time, put sheets in a box with the costume they liked the most. Bree talked about how cute it would be if her kid won the costume contest most of the night, but she didn't bring the kid. She just showed pictures of her child dressed in costume. I laid out about 40 pieces of paper before the party next to the box. Halfway through the party, a guest told me we're out of paper, and I assured them that, since they were smaller pieces, they either fell on the floor or got mistaken for trash or something. I put out more. Upon counting, there were 38 votes for Bree's child, which was more than my turnout. I decided to discard every one of them and give the prize to the person who had the second most votes. Bree wasted no time to walk up to me, pissed. She blew up on me. She called me a try-hard, unsympathetic, etc. before storming out. When I told my friends what happened, they asked me why I took it so seriously. They told me that Bree was cut off financially from her dad and was struggling with bills. They told me Bree was dealing with a lot on her plate that she's never experienced before and could use a win. I rebutted that she's an adult, and adults don't have to communicate and react like that at a party. But my friends don't think I should have used my party as a gotcha and could have just let her have one. After all, I was going out of my way to make sure she didn't win. Well, I'll admit, I did take some joy in not letting her have something because of how she acts. I was mostly doing it because I thought her way was ruining it for the rest of the guests. AITA for not letting her win? NTA. You weren't going out of your way to make sure she didn't win. You were making sure it was fair. Cheaters shouldn't be rewarded. It just enables their behavior. And how many other people there that night would have also appreciated the win? I bet most, if not all of them. I suppose the only thing is, you could have just said only people who are at the party can be in the competition rather than calling out the cheating, which could have saved face for her. Though I don't think she particularly deserved it. NTA. You weren't going out of your way to not let her win. You were going out of your way to not let her cheat. There is a huge difference, and your friends suck for not caring. There is nothing more annoying as someone who is extremely competitive than going to a party and having people obviously ignore someone who is cheating just so the cheater can win. No, you win or lose. If you're going to give a cheater a prize for not playing fairly, just call it a gift and don't tie it to any event. My wife and I, early 30, have a joint bank account that we use to pay all the standard household expenses. For hobbies and other things that do not benefit the entire household, we have separate personal accounts. My wife's family planned a reunion for the beginning of November. They're kind of flaky when it comes to canceling plans at the last minute. Because of this, when my wife was booking plane tickets, I suggested that she pay a bit extra to ensure the ticket was refundable, just in case plans changed. She said, quote, "That won't be a problem. I talked to my family and they are 100% sure they are going." Then booked a non-refundable ticket. Well, turns out that the trip got canceled anyway because 3 of the 6 people coming got sick. WIBTA, if I insisted that the cost of the plane ticket come out of my wife's personal account? The way I see it, because my wife unilaterally decided to book a non-refundable flight against my suggestion, she should also have to unilaterally deal with the financial consequences. My wife is arguing that the plane ticket should come out of our joint account because, had the trip not been canceled, the joint account would have paid for it. A few people have asked if my wife's family was actually sick, or if they were just using it as an excuse to avoid the trip. They were actually sick. One of them was admitted to the hospital for a few days. Don't worry, she's fine now. It was suggested by someone in the comments that I mentioned that we usually do buy refundable plane tickets. She said she chose not to this time because the non-refundable tickets were cheaper, had better arrival departure times, and were from an airline she liked. Thank you to everyone who gave their opinions, both YTA and NTA. After reading through everyone's comments, I still firmly believe I'm in the right on the purely factual question of who should pay for the ticket, but several people brought up good points about picking my battles, instead of making a $400 plane ticket my hill to die on. I'll likely keep the ticket under the joint account, but we'll speak to my wife again about being more responsible with our money. I'm not sure why the top comment was removed. Would highly appreciate a screenshot or summary if anyone has one. NTA. I know this is going against the tide on this post, but I'm with you. If she's spending joint money, and you make a simple request to get cancellation insurance, half of which you're paying for because it's coming out of the joint account, and she refuses, then I agree she should have to reimburse you for the tickets. You weren't giving advice to a random stranger and getting upset because they didn't take it. You were giving advice on a responsible way to handle your joint funds, and she brushed you off. and the result is costing you both money. At the very least, for future trips with her family, I would suggest you each buy your own plane tickets from your personal accounts. That way you'll get your money back, and she won't. But this time around, she should reimburse you. Everyone is saying you're punishing her, but they aren't mentioning her using your joint funds in a way that you didn't want, non-refundable tickets, and expecting you to pay half of a trip that never happened.